Just do what Barack Obama does, then you'll be the best leader in the world. It's as easy as that. Just replicate the best in the world. How hard could it be? Just lead. When we treat leadership as a vocation, it means we're constantly trying to be and do better. We aren't satisfied with the mediocre nonsense that others are willing to put out. One way to get better at leadership is to pick up the positive traits in the good leaders around us and work hard to discard the negative traits that we see in others. There are good and bad traits in every leader around us, and for we, the inspired, it's up to us to filter the good from the bad. But what does it actually mean? What should you be looking for in those leaders around you? Well, if you follow the 6 things I'm about to discuss and tell you, you should find plenty to work on. Some leaders just have this aura, this ethereal presence when they walk into a room. It makes people sit up straighter. It makes them more careful with what they say. It could be seen as fear of the leader, or it could be seen as respect for them. We call it commanding a room, which every good leader is going to need from time to time. But what actually gives a leader a power to command a room? Next time you're in a meeting with a leader that has this sort of aura, note down a few of these things. When do they speak? Are they the first to speak in a room, or do they sit back and let others speak before them? What sort of things do they respond to? Must they have a say on every little point that comes up in a meeting, or are there some points which doesn't really need their attention and they're allowed to let through to the keeper? How are they engaged in the meeting? Are they sitting on a computer and letting the meeting happen around them, or are they engaged and listening to everything that's being said and paying attention to the speaker at all times? Spend some time with a leader that you want to emulate. How do they engage their employees? Do they spend some time trying to work out a little bit about their personal lives, or do they keep it strictly business? Is it a strength of theirs? When they do engage their team, what are their communication skills like? Do they intently focus on what their employee has to say and are responding to what is actually being said? Or is their mind wandering and their responses a little bit vague and a little bit disconnected with the conversation at hand? Are they asking questions to engage further and propel the conversation onwards? Or are they happy to just let the conversation peter out? When I think about engagement, I always think back to one of my managers many years ago. I was a couple of rungs down, but I was able to see the impact that he had on our team. He was described as a bit of a micromanager. He would always ask a lot of questions in a lot of depth and try and be the driving influence in a lot of our projects. And I could see the impact it had on our team. It was a negative one. Everyone was looking over their shoulders. The team felt like he never trusted us. And there was a fear that sort of permeated the group at all times. Keep an eye out for how the leaders around you set standards. Are they explicitly talking to the standards they want from their team, or do they expect their team to just pick up on the standards based on the behaviour of themselves as the leader? Are they asking their team to do things that they're not willing to do themselves? When standards slip, how is this managed? Are disciplinary actions handed out fairly, or is there a bit of up and down in terms of how the disciplinary actions are handled? What about in terms of the carrot instead of the stick? Is maintaining expected standards well managed, or is it more of a popularity contest? I'm going to take a little break in the video here to say, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the like button just to let the YouTube algorithm know exactly what you think of my content. Enough of that, let's get back to the video. Watch the leaders around you and what is their expectation of workload. This is a trap I've fallen into in the past. Work long hours, impress your team. Work short hours and you'll lose their respect. In part, this is true, but all this working from the desk nonsense, long hours to impress your team, is negated if you actually have a discussion with them. If you need to work from home, talk to them about it, let them know why. If you need to be at home by 4 p.m. to deal with life because everything shuts at 5, discuss that with them and they're gonna understand because they're real people. However, leaving at 4 p.m. every day because you feel hard done by with the business and you don't feel like you should be doing all those extra hours every single day, that's not really an appropriate response and something that your team can get behind. Keep an eye on how the good and the bad leaders around you do this. How do they manage other people's time? Are they willing to approve leave readily, except for extenuating circumstances? Or do they need to know in every single detail why you would possibly need to leave the business at any one moment? If your manager works 14 hours a day, do they expect everyone else in their team to work 14 hours a day? Or do they realise that everyone has their own boundaries and that if they're getting the work done, that's appropriate? How detail-oriented are the good leaders that you want to emulate? Do they get down in the nitty-gritty and want to know every detail of every problem? Or are they just willing to have the broad strokes and know the broad details of what's going on with a problem? It's a complicated sort of scenario, this one, because both make effective leaders. It's more about who you want to be as a leader and who you want to emulate. As a leader, do you want to be known as the expert, or do you want to be known as a leader that wholly trusts in their team? If you like the way a certain leader goes about their business, then ask them. Most of the good leaders are willing to take a minute out of their day to answer some leadership questions, talk to you about how they honed their skills and got their leadership skills to a point where you want to copy them. So take a deep breath, knock on that door, and ask the question. This is how you model the behaviours of good leaders and how you manage out the bad traits of the bad leaders around you. This is all encompassed in the idea that treating leadership as a vocation is what you need to do in order to become the best leader that you can possibly be. If you want to see more about leadership as a vocation, then you need to click this link right here.